Joining me now is the director of the largest pro-life group in Northern Ireland, Precious Life, Bernadette Smith, and a member of Abortion Rights UK, Dani Beckett. Ladies, really appreciate you talking to us this afternoon. Bernadette, if I could firstly start with you. So the abortion debate is very much on the agenda in the United States. I mean, what do you make of Alabama's decision to ban all forms of abortion?
I applaud the Alabama lawmakers for recognising the personhood of each individual unborn child. And I know that these very courageous lawmakers will ensure that there is better support there for women in crisis pregnancy. The pro-life movement is about protecting both the mother and the child. And I think this law here will be in place to save more lives.
Interesting to listen to Amanda's report there. She spoke to somebody who was involved in the pro-life movement and she asked the question, I mean, are you not necessarily making a very difficult experience for somebody that much harder?
Well, we care about the mother and the unborn child, and I think after listening to that report, it wasn't very clear there about the support that is available for women. And under research that I've looked at regarding Alabama, there is more crisis pregnancy centres there that are there to support those women with difficult pregnancies. And when we talk about, the life of the mother, it's very rare that the life of a mother would cause any society, like for instance here in Northern Ireland. We don't need abortion here to safeguard women's lives. Women's lives are protected here because we have a law in place that cares for both the mother and the unborn child. And I expect that to be in place in Alabama, where all medical treatment will be available to safeguard the mother's life, but also to recognise the personhood of that unborn child. Okay. So we have to care for both the mother and the child, and that's what I would hope to see in other states in the United States as well.
Well, let's bring in Dani here. Hi, Dani. I mean, this is all an attempt to test Roe versus Wade, that 1973 Supreme Court ruling that legalised abortion. I mean, this is a frontal attack of that.
Yes, and it's absolutely an attack on women, an attack on women's health care. So this bill that's been passed in Alabama means that women who are survivors of rape would be forced to have a forced pregnancy. Women who are living below the poverty line would have to endure a forced pregnancy. If you look to Northern Ireland, it's the same. And women who are carrying fetuses who are not viable are forced to endure that pregnancy, even though by the end of that pregnancy, they will not be able to give birth to a living baby. And that's an absolute attack on women's rights and women's health care. And while the 25 white male senators in Alabama are waiting for their strategic bill to influence a challenge of Roe versus Wade at a national level, women who live in Alabama and in the other states where laws like this are being passed will be forced to seek backstreet abortions, which will still happen, where their lives will be absolutely at risk.
Dani, I'm just looking at some of the facts surrounding this case in Alabama. I mean, apart from the state of Alabama, 7 other states have passed these so-called heartbeat bills, which bans abortions as soon as a heartbeat is detected, which can be anything as early as 6 weeks. And more than 20 other states have introduced or proposed some form of restriction on abortion. I mean, is the momentum moving away from arguments like the one that you've just given me?
The momentum is absolutely with me if you look at the opinions of people on the ground. So over half of people in the States oppose this kind of law. In the UK, over 90% of people think that abortion should be available in some form to women. But if you look at the people making those decisions, especially in Alabama, not one of those people will ever get pregnant. Not one of those people will ever need an abortion. And as I think you recognised, it's a so-called heartbeat bill. What can be detected at 6 weeks is not a heartbeat. Fetuses do not have hearts and do not have brains at 6 weeks. That is the sound of a movement of a cluster of cells. It's a very emotive thing to call it a heartbeat bill. But what I want to think about is the heart and the brain and the body of the woman whose life will be put at risk very often if she's forced to have a pregnancy she doesn't want or forced into a backstreet abortion.
Bernadette, if you look at the polls, I mean, I saw a recent YouGov poll which said that showed to me that the majority of Americans disagree with this move that Alabama has made.
I've lost sound.
OK, we'll just be with you 1 second, Dani. I'm just talking to Bernadette. There is this poll that I've seen, a YouGov poll, which says the vast majority, I think it's about 56%, disagree with the decision that they have made. Do you think that there's a disconnect between the rule makers, those who are pushing this through, and the general population at large?
Well, just before I answer that question, I think it's very, very important that I'm here to represent the people of Northern Ireland who have always been opposed to abortion, and in large numbers. The percentage of people in Northern Ireland would be opposed to any change in the law, and a number of the points that were addressed there by your other correspondent were very incorrect and inaccurate. But looking at the polls in particular in Alabama and in the United States, let's consider that the male members, who I think was very prejudiced for someone to say that it was 25 male legislators who made that decision.
But it was largely male legislators who made that decision, was it not, Bernadette?
Yeah, but who votes for those legislators? People like me, women, vote in legislators, so they're representing the views of their people. And I congratulate the people of Alabama and the other states who are following suit, because what they're doing is those lawmakers are representing the democratic views and will of the people. They're not making those decisions because they're personally pro-life, because there's a demand for a change in the law. And I go to Washington every year to the American DC March for Life, and we see hundreds of thousands of young people, male and female, who are totally opposed to any change in the law. And I think we're seeing the beginning of the end of abortion, where we now know that scientific evidence shows us that the unborn child in the womb is a living, unique human being with a heartbeat that can now be detected at 16 days old, with brain waves at 40 days, and we know that that child should be protected. And Northern Ireland is leading the way in showing the rest of the world where we don't have legalised abortion, we protect both the mother and the unborn child. And I think Alabama and Northern Ireland have a great deal to celebrate, and in common, that we cherish and respect the mother and the unborn child.
OK, Dani, since we're talking about Northern Ireland, if we can bring this debate closer to home, I mean, what do the polls in Northern Ireland say about the issue of abortion, whether it should be decriminalised or whether it should be got rid of completely?
The polls across the whole of the UK and Northern Ireland show that people are overwhelmingly in support of the fact that women should be able to have the right to seek a termination for a pregnancy. They can do in England, Wales and Scotland and in Ireland, and we're now awaiting desperately for Northern Ireland to catch up. Women there should be afforded the same rights as across the rest of the UK. As they're not, we know that they are still having abortions. An abortion ban doesn't end abortion. What it does is it ends legal abortions, it ends safe abortions, and the women of Northern Ireland make up some of the 47,000 women every single year across the world who die as a direct result of seeking a backstreet abortion. So to say that an abortion ban is pro-life is absolutely incorrect, because it doesn't care at all about the life of the woman in question.
Yeah, Bernadette, I have heard this argument before, that this whole idea that if you do ban all forms of abortion, then, you know, you force women from going underground, and that could be detrimental to the health for the woman as well as that unborn child.
Well, I don't think that that's happening in Northern Ireland. We haven't had abortion. We have a law that protects both the mother and the unborn child. And we also have the lowest percentage of women seeking abortions in the whole world, because we're providing care and support for those women in crisis pregnancy. We have a very low percentage of women who travel to England for abortions every day. And what we're doing is we're impacting many of those women by providing them with better resource centres, crisis pregnancy centres, and care throughout the pregnancy. And because we're doing that and we don't have legalised abortion, we can see the results of that. And going back to the polls, I think it's very clear here in Northern Ireland, in 2016, the Stormont government opposed any change in the law. And that was based on the fact that hundreds of thousands of people have actually stated very clearly their views through various different campaigns and petitions, ensuring that the democratic process is respected on the ground and at Stormont. So I think the recent vote in 2016 reflected the views of the people in Northern Ireland, who have clearly been opposed to any change in the law for decades. We don't want to see a law that takes the lives of, like for instance in Britain, nearly 9 million babies have died through abortion. We believe that there's a better answer to women in crisis pregnancies. There's a better way with better medical care for women. And just to point out, abortion is not health care. There's no benefits to abortion. It takes the life of the unborn child and it destroys those women. So let's do something better for the women, not just in Alabama and Northern Ireland, but throughout the rest of the world.
OK, we will have to leave it there, I'm afraid. It is a very emotive subject. Bernadette, Dani, really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, ladies. Thank you.